on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about Christopher Nolan's newest movie that is booming at the box office. A movie about a bomb booming at the box office. Oppenheimer. Let's talk about it.
Modded Movie Review.
Alrighty, so right off the bat, I want to go ahead and give a couple disclaimers. For one, Christopher Nolan is a really good filmmaker. He's made a lot of great movies that people would consider big hits. I personally have only seen 3 Christopher Nolan movies before this, and it was the Batman trilogy. So, when I'm saying that this is one of the greatest movies I've ever seen, please get off my back if you're one of those people who are like, Christopher Nolan has made like 7 better movies. I don't know. I haven't seen any of his movies. This is the first Christopher Nolan movie I've seen that's not a superhero movie. So, I think it was pretty damn good, and I'm going to say that I think that this was a beautiful movie, and I really liked it. So, that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive right into this. So, spoiler alert, if you guys haven't seen the movie or read a history book, come on, guys. These books have been out for, like, at least 20 years. Come on. But anyways, kidding, obviously. So, I do want to go ahead and say, right off the bat, I really enjoyed this movie. Thought it was fantastic. I'm a huge history nerd, so anything like this that takes place during either of the world wars, very interesting to me. I love war movies, and this kind of shows a war movie from a different perspective of somebody who's not really on the front lines, but has a lot at stake with the war, and I think that they do a really good job of showing it. And something that I like about this movie is Christopher Nolan, his attention to detail is fantastic. He does a really good job with making sure things are historically accurate, but not leaving it to the point where it's 100% historically accurate. And there are things in here where he gives nods to like big conspiracy theories that regards to stuff that happened in Robert J. Oppenheimer's life and some of the stuff that happens afterwards. And I think it's really interesting. So I want to talk about those first before I get too far into the movie itself, because they're just a couple. And some people might have think that they were like really like, you know, weird. Personally, I think that it is great, and I am really happy that he included them. So for one, his lover, who he has an affair with, the character that Florence Pugh plays in the movie, she is a person that actually existed in Robert Oppenheimer's life. She was somebody who she really loved, but they were a person of kind of like conflict because they were communist, and a lot of people had a lot of issues with them. And in the movie, they show her committing suicide, which is publicly, that's how she died. Like, that's what they say. That's what all the articles and news stuff you could ever find about it says, is that she killed herself. But there was a big conspiracy that she was murdered because Oppenheimer was kind of distracted by her, and they needed to make sure Oppenheimer can do his best work. So it was kind of said that she was killed. And they leave a couple nods to this. One, the letter that she has written or whatever, her suicide note, is unsigned, which is huge. Another thing is, I'm pretty sure the letter itself never actually makes it to Oppenheimer. You can't see the writing. So, like, it could literally be anybody's writing. But also, when he is showing her actually dying in the movie, her head is being pushed underwater. She's pushing her head underwater. She did a bunch of pills. She has a bunch of stuff going on. But there's a short clip where it shows a person with a glove on their hand pushing her head into the water. So I like that he threw that in there, but then he also did it during a sequence where Robert Oppenheimer is literally kind of breaking down because he's hearing the news about it, and it kind of seems like something that's just in his head of what could potentially happen. And I like that because that's a huge conspiracy. It's something that's really big with the stuff that's going on around this historical time, and he included it, but he didn't make it like draw attention away from things. He didn't do it to like be like, oh, history is subjective, because history isn't subjective. History is what happened. So I like the fact that he threw it in there, and he did it so subtly that people who are giant history nerds and would be against it aren't going to be like, oh my god, what the hell? But people who are really fascinated by what could have happened in history that we don't really know about, love it. It was fantastic. But now, the other thing that I want to talk about, this is a very minor thing, and I'm going to talk about this way too long. In fact, I'm going to talk about it longer than it even takes place in the movie, but it was something that I was excited about. So, Robert Downey Jr.'s character is a guy named Strauss, one of the two. I don't know, but honestly, I don't mind if I pronounce it wrong, because he was a dick in the movie about the pronunciation of his name, and I think that was really funny. But what's it called? His character is somebody who is a higher up in the government in America. It's implied that he's either like CIA or something like that, right? I don't know the history about this 100%, but big thing is he's a very public person. He's an official person. He's someone who works for the government. And after this kind of court hearing that's happening during this time span of the movie, his public image gets ruined, and he's really, really mad. He loses the vote, and one of the deciding votes was John F. Kennedy. And something that's really interesting about that, a lot of people who watch the movie will just see it and be like, oh my God, that's a president. We know that guy. But a big thing is, regarding JFK's death, there's a lot of conspiracies that the CIA had something to do with it, and the American government had something to do with getting him killed intentionally because he didn't go along with their ideals or something like that. He was just supposed to be a figurehead, but he was actually making his own decisions, which they didn't like. And so, them including not Robert Strauss, I don't remember the guy's first name, RDJ's character, the fact that they had him figuring out that the person who voted against him was John F. Kennedy was a very big thing, because this whole movie, Robert Downey Jr.'s character, is fueled with hatred and rage from a single moment, and it's spiraling and snowballing into him wanting to absolutely destroy Robert Oppenheimer's image and completely ruin his life. And so I like that they're showing this character who clearly can't handle very small things happening to him. John F. Kennedy, in his mind, is who he's going to blame for him losing this court hearing. And if something was to happen with him being the reason why JFK was assassinated, it would have snowballed from that event, which I thought was really interesting. Obviously, Christopher Nolan is a very serious filmmaker, so he doesn't really make things with the intentions of making sequels or anything like that. But I could see if it was like another film company, another director or something, them being like, okay, we got to make a sequel now that's the assassination of JFK, and showing all the behind the scenes stuff with it. And RDJ is going to reprise his role and stuff like that. Obviously, it's not going to happen, but I think that it's cool that he included that, because literally he didn't have to say John F. Kennedy's name in there, and a lot of people will think that, oh, that's kind of like fan servicey. It's not. It's a big part of history, and it was a very interesting thing about history that still to this day a lot of people discuss and kind of argue over what really happened with JFK's assassination. So I think that that was really interesting that they included that. Now, with that being said, to talk about the actual movie, because it's about 7 minutes into the video and I haven't started talking about the actual movie. This movie was fantastic. I've seen people online compare it to The Social Network, and I'm 100% going to just take that and completely agree with it. It starts off taking place after all of the events that we're here to see for the movie. It is showing Robert Oppenheimer's character in, I want to say it was like 1950 something. It's years after the World War II or whatever. It's years after the Manhattan Project. He's kind of made a name for himself. He's now nicknamed the father of the atomic bomb or whatever. And he's kind of taken to the fact that that's what his legacy is going to be, and he's just kind of accepted it, and he's kind of playing into that kind of nickname now. And I think it's very interesting. But one thing that I really like about it is it starts off there with that court hearing. He's being questioned. People are interrogating him because he needs to get his security clearance back. And there's a lot of blood in the water with that, per se, because he was a communist way back then. And a lot of people still don't know if he can be trusted, which I think is insane. Man did so much amazing things for our country, and they are still interrogating him. It's kind of like the Richard Jewell movie, if anybody ever watched that, where it's like, and in real life, obviously, Richard Jewell is an actual person, where it just kind of shows that, like, sometimes being a good person and doing the right thing and doing stuff for your country just kind of backfires, because at the end of the day, your country doesn't care about what you're doing. They're kind of just mad that you did it instead of somebody else. And I think that the way that they portray that with Robert Oppenheimer in this movie was fantastic. Yeah, so we open up with him. He's in a room full of people. They're having some kind of arguments and debates, and it's a very like legal procedure thing. And then we also see things from RDJ's point of view. We see like the one sequence where they met, and what's it called? RDJ's character Strauss is kind of like a very cocky and arrogant person. He's showing around Oppenheimer. He wants to really introduce him to Albert Einstein, which I think is hilarious, because obviously really big important scientist will know really big important scientists. And I kind of like the fact that Strauss's character in this movie is a very arrogant person, and he's an idiot, not just in the sense that he doesn't understand the science stuff, which is what he thinks is happening here, is everybody hates him because he doesn't understand science stuff. He also just completely misses social cues and how to be a decent person. So RDJ plays him fantastically. I will go ahead and say that the acting in this movie, 10 out of 10. Literally, Cillian Murphy, I've never seen him in anything before this. I was really excited to see him. He absolutely kills the role. He is fantastic. His dramatic, his very stoic performance in this is brilliant. If he doesn't get nominated for an Oscar and win the Oscar for Best Actor, as of right now, obviously there's a lot of other movies coming out this year, but as of right now, I think this is the best acting performance that we've had the entire year. RDJ as Strauss in this was absolutely brilliant. He does such a great job creating a new character and somebody who's unrecognizable from anything he's ever done. He feels very sinister, and I like that he starts off as like a very like kind of trustworthy. We can kind of like understand where he's coming from. He's supposed to be like a regular human amongst all of these scientists who are like above us essentially. And originally he starts off as a relatable character, and he slowly you can see his spiral into he's just a power hungry person. He actually is not really all that, and he thinks he's better than everyone for no reason. And I think that the way that they portray it in this movie is really, really good. Christopher Nolan's writing for this was brilliant because it slowly introduces us to the characters. And it starts off with us kind of thinking, wow, Robert Oppenheimer's kind of a dick. He's not really a great person. He's trying to kill his teacher, which is apparently an actual story that happened. And he's seen it just as somebody who's like not necessarily the best person to work with. He's kind of like selfish. He's has this reputation about him, which I like that they introduced that in this movie. It's great. It's fantastic. Cillian Murphy does a great job playing somebody who has that reputation that he's not a great person. And I like the fact that we start off thinking, wow, he's not a great guy. And then RDJ seems like he's a really good person here. And then as the movie progresses and we see more and more about their pasts, it kind of flip-flops. And it's really good, really well written. Like I said, the direction of this movie is fantastic. Christopher Nolan is incredible. Genuinely incredible. If you're ever like wondering, oh my god, is Christopher Nolan really that good? He is. This is fantastic. This is by far one of the best written and directed movies I've seen in a very long time. Now that being said, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the runtime of this movie. It's 3 hours long. Do I think this movie needed to be 3 hours? Not really. There's a handful of things that I feel like could have been cut out. And the big thing is, with this movie being a 3 hour long movie, it still feels like it's rushed a little bit, which is something that really throws me off. So they kind of montage through some of the interesting stuff with, oh, here's all these different scientists coming together. The building of Los Santos, the town where they did the Manhattan Project or whatever, is so quick in the movie, which is like, it's fine, it makes sense. But also the sequence where they're introducing all the different scientists, it's cool, and I like the fact that it really seems realistic to the fact that it's like not all the scientists are going to be all in the same room at the same time. Everybody's going to be coming in, going out, whatever, however things go. But it bothers me that they don't really give us time to be introduced to some of the really important scientists, because as far as the movie goes, it kind of sucks that, oh my god, we see this actor and that's really exciting that he's going to be in this, but he's only in it for a short amount of time, which kind of sucks. But it also kind of sucks because there were some big scientists who really had a lot to do with this project who we don't really get to see that much in it. So I really wish that there were some sequences that were cut out of this movie and gave us more time for that part of the movie, because that part of the movie is fantastic and it was great. Another thing that I wish we had more time with was Robert Oppenheimer is giving a speech after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and everybody's cheering him on, and he starts getting PTSD. He sees the skin peeling off of a person's face, like what would happen when the bomb went off. He starts seeing people throwing up from the sickness that people were getting because of the bomb. He steps on something, and then he looks down, and it's the ashes in the shape of a human body. Bunch of very mortifying stuff, and it is crazy. It looks insane. The visuals were fantastic, but the way that Cillian Murphy portrays this is just brilliant. Like, he is terrified of the creation that he has. There's so much guilt and dread in his eyes. He really feels like a monster because he was the one who created this bomb, and he didn't have any say in how it was used, basically. And it's a very depressing scene, very heart-wrenching scene. And my big thing is I kind of wish that that scene had a little bit longer to breathe because, like everything else in this movie, the scene's like a minute. And then somebody says some big line and then on to the next scene. And I kind of wish that for a movie that was 3 hours long, it gave scenes that needed the time to breathe. The time to breathe. Because there's one sequence in the movie that if I was to cut out a sequence, it would be this. At one point, Cillian Murphy's character, Oppenheimer, goes to Chicago to kind of see the progress of stuff that's going on, and he has an interaction with a general, a military general, who is a very shitty person in real life. He like would beat people up, he murdered people, and has a lot of like blood in his ledger, right? Not a great dude. And there's a scene in the movie where it's about 10 minutes of this guy interrogating Oppenheimer, and it goes from their conversation together to Oppenheimer and, I can't remember the character's name, but the guy that Matt Damon plays, those two having their conversations, and then it cuts back to these two, and then these two, and then these two. And like I said, that goes on for 10 minutes, and I think it was cool, but at the same time, it didn't really add that much to the story. It just kind of showed us that Oppenheimer's a smart guy, but sometimes he doesn't know how to lie. And it shows that he's lied in places where he's talking to very high up official people who he probably should not be lying to. And then also showed that he is very loyal to his friends. And when it comes to the country, that's not great because they'd rather you be loyal to the country, but they're being loyal to his friends, which makes him a shitty person. And it's like, it's cool, and I like that the scene gives us that, but at the same time, they made that a really long scene for something that did not need to be that long. And like I said, I've already addressed the places where I wish that that time would have gone instead. But that being said, it's pretty solid. Another thing I want to talk about, the actresses in this movie. Florence Pugh does a brilliant job in this movie. Emily Blunt absolutely kills it. And that's another thing is Emily Blunt is not in this movie as much as I would have expected her to be in this movie. And she comes out of nowhere towards the end of the movie when they're interviewing her during the little security clearance thing or whatever for Oppenheimer. And she's just an absolute genius. She's ripping off a bunch of like really helpful things to help him out. And she's just really, really smart. And I love the way that that scene plays out. And it is a very shocking thing when it happens. But at the same time, there's like no really like signs of that being a thing. They kind of just brush over the fact that she's a really smart character when we first meet her. And then whenever that happens and it's like, oh my God, Emily Blunt is doing Emily Blunt things. And it's like, yo, that is mind blowing. It is incredible. But it just kind of doesn't feel as earned. So I kind of wish we got a little bit more time with her. But her acting performance with what she did have in the film was fantastic. Really, really good. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, that was great. I really like this. I feel like this movie and Barbie both kind of struggled with the ensemble cast a little bit. There are so many people who are in this movie that a lot of people were expecting to see, but a lot of the like side characters didn't really have a lot of like things to do. They were just kind of there for a lot of it, which is, you know, fine. Like it's not like a really bad thing, but at the same time, it's like a 3 hour long movie. You see, oh my God, there's these like 30 actors or something that are going to be in it. And the majority of them don't even have lines. It's kind of like, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, I really like this movie. I'm going to go ahead and kind of give it its final score now. Thought it was really good. Really, really enjoyed it. In my opinion, this is one of the best movies that have came out this year. I don't know how much this movie's going to have rewatchability, but I'm sure when it comes out on Blu-ray, I'll probably buy it and rewatch it at my house at some point. I'm going to give this movie a solid 96 out of 100. I think it's really, really good. A few things in here is just like small pacing things. If you're going to make a 3 hour long movie, it's good that you're making it fast so it doesn't feel like 3 hours, but at the same time, some scenes should have been longer. I love the way that the movie ends. I didn't talk about that, but Strauss is like so consumed by the fact that Albert Einstein was in like a really bad mood one day, and it's kind of Robert Oppenheimer was the last person to talk to him. And I like that we kind of see that, oh, there's this important conversation that they had that we don't really know of. And then at the end of the movie, we finally see the conversation, and it's Robert Oppenheimer talking about how they've started something that they can't really control, and now the entire world is going to be destroyed, and it's basically his fault. And I like that And I think it was a very powerful way to end the movie, and the visuals and stuff with it worked out really well. But yeah, that was it for this video, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out. Pow, pow, pow.
He wanted me to drop a verse, I did this. We planned a day, and then we did this. Wanna be in love with the girls with the kisses. Don't give a damn, I'll rid this. I like this when I run the distance. I run a 5K, you go ballistics. I wanna live within the business. Buy more than what's on the clearances. You're getting big cause I know you're a physicist. I wanna deny this shit, I'm unlimited.